Go.
It's November 27th, 2024, Wednesday, and I'm with Mr. John J. Jeckovich, and they're reading his book, Their Mother's Sons. This book starts when Mr. Jeckovich was 11 to his later into his retirement years. It starts off Mr. Jeckovich caring for his mother, going into World War II, being shot up, beat up, stabbed, trench foot, frostbite, you name it, he got it during World War II, but just due to the prayers of his mother, a devout Roman Catholic, that's what got him through the war, without a doubt. Many of his co-fighters didn't make it. They didn't make it. Mr. Jeckovich is a highly decorated World War II soldier, Purple Heart, 2 Bronze Stars, from Company H, the 2nd Battalion, the 291st Regiment of the 75th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army during World War II. Mr. Jeckovich lives by the motto, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. So I'm going to be opening up the laptop, Mr. Jeckovich. I'm in Studio 6B. What is your dog?
420965.
Thank you. That's the passcode to open up the laptop. We're on chapter 21, page 632, and this chapter is titled Back Upstairs and Christmas. You want to make a couple comments on this chapter?
No, go ahead.
Do you want to read this chapter?
No, go ahead.
All right. Why, I marveled at the genius of it all. I felt I was never a part of it, an entire substance or meaning. I was only here through necessity, not by inclination or desire. I could never have or acquire the semblance of the satisfaction, the contentment that so many of my fellow workers developed. They had found a niche in life and were happy for it. I was still seeking mine. The prospects of the wedding and planning of it occupied much of our waking hours. It was not that it was that complex, but it was obviously new to both of us, and we had an added burden of how my mother would fit into the overall picture. Delphine had appraised the situation with Mother very early in our relationship. Even though she never addressed it directly, I always got the impression that she was cognizant of it. It would prove to be that one dominant feature that was the most frustrating to come to terms with, not so much Delphine, but mostly for me. It would all be from a simple question of where would we live after our marriage, which in reality should have been more straightforward and elementary of the several problems which faced Delphine, and I discussed it briefly at times, but only in a superficial general way. Naturally, we wanted the best within our means, which could develop into an endless possibilities, but we were finally settled on a house of our own. We did not care for the apartment atmosphere, and renting from prior tenants was not acceptable to both of us. It was only after we became engaged that the question of housing became polarized and focused after the first meeting of Delphine and Mother. I recall the remarks Mother made at the time regarding the apartment upstairs, and did not assume until now that she was furnished the information by my mother. Mother had indeed changed her tactics, and I should have realized the relevance much sooner. I sensed it out, but for some outlandish reason did not follow through on it. Where I took exception and objected was that she had sought out an aid of Delphine to further her cause. My only feelings were quite definite. I felt that we should start a whole new life together without a cumbersome and emotional baggage of my former entity, in essence, a fresh start in a new environment. There was no sense to reproach Mother, as it was only lead to all kinds of ramifications and even jeopardize and endanger my relationship with with Delphine. The only recourse would be to discuss it freely and openly among ourselves. Delphine and I resolved to do what was right and an amicable for both of us and no one else. I phoned Delphine that Friday, and she was pleased to hear of the information I had sent for regarding our honeymoon stay. Again, the idea of an outdoor setting appealed to her, and she stated she would do some ice skating, weather permitting. I then asked about her plans for Sunday afternoon, and she quickly responded that she thought I was going to come down for several hours before work. I replied that I wanted to see her, but I was at a loss to know where to go. It was too cool for a picnic. CJ suggested we go to Chestnut Ridge. What's Chestnut Ridge?
Chestnut Ridge is the park. Safe park.
23 minutes.
Is it open year-round?
Yeah.
So what would you do there during the winter?
We started little fires up and had hot dogs and stuff in there. Once in a while, not very often. Not in the wintertime, no.
Okay. Presumably they would have a fire going in a fireplace at the main lodge, and we could walk around the park if it did not rain. I thought it was a fine idea, and I said I'd pick her up around 2 p.m., to which she agreed. We talked a little longer, then said goodbye. She whispered, "I love you," affectionately, and I was touched by the affection, especially since she was verbalizing it for the second time. As I drove home from calling Delphine, where'd you drive home from?
From our house.
No, where you drove home from calling Delphine. What phone were you using?
The phone down at the opening where the trains come in.
Oh, at the train station.
Train station, yeah.
Okay. All right, so that makes sense. As I drove home from calling Delphine, I thought how my life had changed for the better since I have known her. I was in the process of getting married in a few short months and eagerly looking forward to it. The person I was to spend the rest of my life with was warm, sincere, loyal, and all of the above, had much personal character. I consider myself fortunate to have found her, and the events following our initial meeting all seemed to fall into place. I look back several years in particular to the time of the service and the difficulty I had with the decision making with Anne, with nothing else would appear to be working out. With Delphine, I did not have that difficulty. So once you got married, how many years were you married for?
69 years.
So it worked out as
It was all right, yeah. It was good, yeah.
and better. 69 long, wonderful years. Delphine Jeckovich left this earth on August 14th, 2020, a short 4 years ago. Delphine was approximately 90 years old, and they were two peas in a pod, John Jeckovich and Delphine Jeckovich, and they were married for 69 years. Right, 69 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. With Anne, where to live has also been an issue of conjecture, but not as direct with Delphine. I was mostly agonized by me alone, as I kept all this away from Anne. I could never bring myself to tell Anne about my mother. Why couldn't you bring yourself to tell Anne about your mother?
Anne?
Yeah, you said I could never bring myself to tell Anne about my mother.
Well, Anne was a different personality.
So you wouldn't tell her about your mother, right?
No.
We're speaking of Anne Mahoney from
Anna Mae Mahoney, yeah.
From Owensboro, Kentucky. Mr. Jeckovich was dating her when he was in basic training in the early 1940s. And then ironically enough, Mr. Jeckovich, 80-some years later, called Annie Mahoney on the phone. She's still in Owensboro, Kentucky, And tell us how the conversation went.
Well, you're talking 30, 40 years later, right?
80.
80 years later, well, she was feeble.
Well, tell us how it went.
Well, I couldn't understand her. She was feeble and weak.
So what did you do right after that?
So I took her picture down and put my mother up there.
Well, Mr. Jeckovich had Annie Mahoney's picture in his office for 80-some years, and when he removed the picture, you could see the faded yellow on the walls because it sat there for so long. And then Mr. Jeckovich took Annie Mahoney's picture down, wrapped it up in a towel, and where'd you put it?
The Lord knows what I did with it.
I believe Mr. Jeckovich put it in his file cabinet. But the interesting point, whose picture did you put up in that place?
Put my mother's.
And there we go, we're back to the book. Their mother's sons. Their mother's sons, we're back to the book. It went around full circle. You had two other brothers and a sister. Did they care for your mother?
Well, in a way, yeah. Steve was in California, Sally was in West Virginia, so they didn't have much contact with my brother.
So you were the main caregiver.
Yeah.
And Delphine got along with your mother quite well.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That was the best thing happened to my mother.
Yeah. With Delphine, the problem never arose. I not only took her home for the first time, but ridiculously spent the entire day working on cupboards while Delphine got acquainted with Mother. What do you mean the first time, Delphine, with your mother, you spent time working on cupboards? What is that?
Cupboards.
What were you doing?
I was putting, there were metal cupboards, I was putting wooden ones up.
So you brought Delphine home for the first time to meet your mother, and what'd your mother say to you?
She said, go do your work, I'll take care of this young lady.
And it worked out great.
Oh, yeah. There was a mutual attraction right away.
Were you eavesdropping on their conversations?
Huh?
Were you eavesdropping on their?
Oh, yeah, well, they're in the next row.
So it was all, you were happy. It was all
Yeah.
going out. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. She wanted to get along with Mother, and she was determined to do just that. This issue of living upstairs was part of it, I am sure. Issue living upstairs was part of it, and I am sure. The issue of living upstairs was part of it, I am sure, and it would bring it up Sunday. Chestnut Ridge would be an ideal spot for it. Okay, so now we're going to discuss about moving above your mother, right?
Yeah.
Let's see how that goes. I drove to Delphine's house that Sunday. As I drove up, she ran out of the house as she'd done on the previous time and waited for me to make a U-turn to get on her side of the street. My parents are out, she exclaimed gleefully. I've been watching for you through the front windows so as to catch you before you came to the door. She was wearing a dark skirt and a green sweater jacket. She looked very smart, and I occasionally mentioned it. She was delighted to see me once again and leaned over and kissed me briefly on the cheeks as she entered the car. It's going to be a beautiful day, she remarked radiantly. It's not going to rain. I smiled at her once again, noting that her appearance, and she sat there, her skirt slightly above the knees. We have a lot to talk about and many decisions to make, with not much time to do it in, she exclaimed. All I could think about was the way she looked, and a desire and a craving which be striving to be realized and fulfilled. She suggested we might get something in the lodge in the park, and I thought about bringing a picnic basket, but I felt it was just too cold. She also had not eaten anything since the coffee and the toast this morning. We pulled into the park and headed directly for the lodge and cafeteria. Luckily it was open and we got a huge hamburger with everything on it and a steaming cup of coffee. There was a blazing fire in a mammoth stone fireplace, and the aroma of the burning logs filled the air. We sat at a table close to the fireplace, listening to the crackling of the embers, and they burned furiously, emitting their warm glow throughout the spacious room. Do you remember that oversized fireplace?
Yeah.
I bet you they still have it there today.
Yeah, but it's still started,
Yeah.
That was all brick, all stone, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. It was a rather large room with many full-length windows almost down to the floor for easy viewing of the outdoors in the ski area. At the ski area, do they have rope tows or ski lifts?
Had what?
At the skiing area, do they have rope tows or ski lifts?
They had, well, it depended what ski area we went. We went to rope tolls or we went to the trestle things, yeah. What's this?
Drink a little water, John.
Good job.
I'll piss my pants now.
Water break for Mr. John J. Jeckovich. Water break for Mr.
13 minutes.
Now what?
What?
Want someone to take the water from you?
No, here.
Have another sip. You need the water. You need the water.
All right.
I see you got new pants, a new sweater on. Boy, you're doing quite well.
Oh, these pants are new.
day
They're old. These pants are old. This,
old.
I got this in the closet.
2 days old. Every day a new shipment comes rolling in for Mr. Jeckovich, and you are.
You could land a 747 in his closet, it's so
You
big.
can land a 747 in Mr. Jeckovich.
What?
You can land a 747 in your closet so big and full of clothes. You're doing quite well. It was a rather large room with many full-length windows, almost down to the floor level for easy viewing for the outdoors of the ski area. The large smoke blackened wood beams overhead were supported by thick iron straps that enclosed the width of the beams wherever they were fastened. The floor was Vermont slate. What does Vermont slate look like?
Vermont slate is green. It comes with different shapes.
Is it hard to install?
Oh, yeah, it's got to be cemented in the floor. Floor's got to be a level, treated and everything else.
Into a random pattern highlight by black grout in between. By any standard, it was a cozy, warm room to sit and meditate one's thoughts or to have one's views compared and evaluated. I was glad Delphine suggested to come here instead of sitting in a crowded your host somewhere comparable. Did you sit in your host a lot?
Well, I picked her up from work once in a while, yeah.
And was it always so noisy in your host?
Yeah, it was always crowded, yeah.
Do you want another hamburger? I asked, knowing full well what she would reply. No, I'm full, but I'd like another cup of coffee. So Delphine drank a lot of coffee, right?
No, I didn't think so. So.
Okay.
No.
Knowing, she remarked, dabbing her lips with a paper napkin. I walked to a small counter in the corner of the room and retrieved 2 more cups of coffee, spilling some from each as I made my way back to the table. Delphine was sitting and gazing into the fire, obviously deep in thought, for she did not notice my return. What are you thinking about? So deep in thought, I asked her, handing her a cup not quite as full as when we got it. She turned towards me, reached for the cup, and took a sip, testing to see how hot it was, and pursing her lips as she did. I was just thinking about many times I've been here with my family, and today, strangely, it seems like my very first time here. It appears I've never really viewed those surroundings quite in the same manner as I did now. As she spoke, she kept gazing into the fire, the burning embers glowing into different configurations as they snapped and crackled, throwing the burnt sparks out to the slate hearth, and then quickly extinguishing themselves. I sat next to her, the warmth of fire radiating over almost all as a security blanket protected us from the evil which may be lurking into our future. which protect us from the evil which will be lurking into our future. Wow. I took her hand and held it, gently caressing the engagement ring on her fingers which bound her to one another. She looked up at me and smiled, leaned her head into my shoulder. Useful life, and do you think we'll have a good life together? Well, here's the answer. Did you have a good life together?
69 years.
69 years. I guess that's the answer to that damn question. I mean a satisfying and useful life. And before I could say anything, she answered her own question. I think we will. Okay, she's 100% right. It won't be dramatic or pompous, but it also won't be unrewarding or self-centered like so many marriages today. That was 1940s.
Yeah, 40, yeah.
Now, 2024, Florida alone has over 70,000 divorces.
Yeah.
Could
More
it
in
be?
Florida, more in Florida than anywhere else.
Yeah, 70,000 divorces. Could it be we have 70,000 divorces because most people are so egocentric and not Christocentric? Could be. Could be. Because Mr. Jeckovich, when he proposed in a Roman Catholic basilica in Tonawanda, New York. And after Delphine Stulak accepted his proposal to marriage, they went to the altar and they said a prayer. They said a prayer for a happy and successful marriage. And the prayer was answered 69 years. So maybe in the 40s, people were less egocentric and they were more Christocentric. I think they probably were.
Different culture.
I think they probably were.
Yeah.
The egos are huge today. It's just unbelievable what foolish things people post on the internet about themselves. Wow. It's really laughable, actually. So today, she turned to me, and I could see that her eyes were misty as the fire reflected a small teardrops in them. She became aware of them and quickly brushed them away in her hand, smiling again. Let's get some fresh air, she uttered quickly, recovering and arising from her seat. Here we go, 6:36, we're moving right along. All right. I took the last gulp of my coffee, tossed a paper cup into the fire, and followed her out to a gentle slope preceding the rope tow. There we go, the rope tow for skiers. She zipped up her sweater jacket to reflect some of the cool air as we walked briskly along the slope. I could not help thinking about how far we had come in our relationship and how much we sought out one another for the aid and comfort. So you came a long way in your relationship. Where did you meet Delphine Stulak at?
At the dance hall.
On Main Street?
Yeah.
In Buffalo, New York?
Yeah.
Was that the Delrood?
Delwood Ballroom.
And that was on the second floor?
Yeah, second floor.
So it generated an acquaintance from the Delrood Ballroom into a marriage
Well, she
proposal.
was with two other people, I guess it's Rosalie.
And how did that work out? Were they always
Well, I had a hard
trailing?
time getting rid of them.
You got rid of them?
Well,
Why did
I
you get
mean-
rid of them?
I mean, after a couple of weeks, I got rid of them, yeah.
How'd you do that tactfully?
Well, with Delphine, I talked about it. Well, I guess Agnes was conscious of it because she was older. And she said, people don't want to be bothered. They're acquainted with one another. They don't want to be bothered. She understood that. Rosalie didn't understand that.
So what eventually happened when they went their separate ways so you could spend some private time talking to Delphine?
Yeah. Well, they drifted away. Agnes drifted away because she was older and she didn't want to stay out too late. And she didn't want to get involved in our company. And Rosalie was sickly too. She had a problem with her health.
So Agnes and Rosalie worked at W.T. Grant's with Delphine.
Right.
And right up to Delphine's marriage vows, did Delphine remain employed at W.T. Grant's?
Oh, Delphine?
Did she work right up to her marriage at W.T. Grant's?
No, she quit 2 weeks before.
2 weeks before. And then after she got married, did she take up employment back at WT Grants?
No, she stayed home.
I see. How about Rosalie and Agnes? Did they remain employed at WT Grants?
Agnes and Rosalie stayed, well, Rosalie got sick, she got to the hospital. That Agnes stayed there. Agnes
For many
stayed until
years.
she was older, yeah.
For many years.
Yeah.
Well, that was a big chain of stores, WT Grants. All gone today.
Yeah.
All Kmart's gone today. All Sears gone today.
Montgomery Ward's.
Montgomery Ward's gone today. And we're losing many, many stores today.
For Amazon.
Brick and mortar. For those listening, I would stay away from it. You could do more business online, be much more profitable than opening up a brick and mortar stores. And if you happen to get a brick and mortar store, be sure you negotiate a low rent, because there's so much vacancies in commercial markets, so much vacancies. And then you have to think about, once you rent that commercial store, it's going to be another challenge. It never used to be, but it's a big challenge to find an employees. It's a big challenge to find employees. They might sound good at the interview stage, but 8 times out of 10, they won't show up for their job.
2 or 3 weeks later, it's a different story.
Yeah. So brick and mortar, I'd stay away from. There's a lot of other ways to make a good living. Let's see. For a moment, I was not thinking of the wedding plans or even where we were to live or Martha's part of this. I only wanted to bask in the certainty of the moment what we were together. For without Delphine, would still be drifting aimlessly, disliking my role in life and its uncertainties, and with no objective or goal in life. Minutes, please.
Two and a half.
Oh, 3.5.
2.5.
2.5 minutes?
Okay, well, let's talk about this. So I'm going to hold this chapter reading here because I want to hear your own words. So where did you decide to live once you got married?
Well, we decided to kick the Horb out and move upstairs.
Horb was a tenant living above your mother.
Yeah.
And did he leave easily?
Well, he left easily because he was building a house across the street.
So he turned out to be a true gentleman.
Yeah, he's a nice guy, yeah.
And then he built a house across the street, a one-story house.
Yeah.
And just 2 years ago, that house burnt down. But Mr. Horb has been long gone. He's been long gone. And so, what did you have to do to remodel that upstairs apartment to make it your way?
I put new carpets in and did some of the woodwork, sanded it up, cleaned it up. Kitchen was bad. Had to put new sink in, new plumbing and all that stuff. New cupboards.
Who did all the work?
I did all the work, yeah.
You did every bit of it,
Yeah.
even the plumbing.
Well, I did the plumbing. I didn't do the plumbing where it concerned gas. I let the gas company do that.
And isn't it an interesting fact with most of the phones today that are working on the internet, it's hard to get a call through or out. But that phone that you had at 3063 Orleans Avenue, tell us about that.
That was really reliable on the side of the corner as your room there.
Describe the phone and how
It was a black phone on the wall. And it was dial phone too, and it was a clear phone, no static or nothing. You picked up the phone once, there was somebody there.
So you had that same phone without any modifications or changes for over 50 years. Did you ever miss a call?
No,
Were you ever not able to make a call?
no.
We kind of gone backwards, haven't we?
We're in AT&T cell phone hell today. We'd be lucky to get a call out once an hour.
Yeah.
We went.
Well, then you got party calls too now, yeah.
What's a party call?
They
Tell
got
us.
2 or 3 people on the same line.
So you had a party line.
I had a private line, yeah.
10 seconds.
I had a private line, yeah.
Private line.
I guess we'll pick it up again tomorrow.
Got another one in the books.
All right, okay.